Hello, Instagram family. I am so excited for today's live with two of my dear friends. And it's the first time. Okay, great. Oh, let me see. I have to get them on. It's the first time I'm doing this with two people, so that's very exciting. I'm just going to pin this comment here. Okay, let's see. Okay, they're not requesting. Okay, let me see. Okay, here we go. Okay. Hey, Casey!
Hello.
So good to have you. Yay!
I'm super excited.
I think Nikka is coming on. Let me make sure I. Okay. Oh, yes.
Hello, loves.
We did it.
Yay! The technology worked.
The technology worked.
Oh
I'm
my
always in the
gosh.
beginning like, oh, I've got to get everyone on and things.
I'm trying to adjust here. Give me a moment. Oh, goodness.
Oh, so good to have you both here and to have this three people. My first time. Let me do a little introduction. So, Casey Aksoy is an embodiment and sexual empowerment coach dedicated to healing and reclamation of women's bodies, sexual identity, and joy. She works with women on building their self-esteem, confidence, and intuition through deep body connection. Oh, I love these intros. She helps her clients to liberate their bodies from the bondage of numbness and disconnection by teaching them how to tune in and turn on their bodies, yes, so they may feel pleasure, passion, and desire like never before. Her desire is for her clients to live from a place of sensuality, sexuality, and inner glow, allowing them to experience the power of their full self-expression each and every day. Yay! And Nikka Karli, is an erotic muse, writer, medicine walker, multidisciplinary storyteller, body poet, moon stalker, ceremonial activist, and abolitionist, and yoga teacher who helps soul refugees and multi-dimensional messengers, that is artists, healers, athletes, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, access and unleash the remembrance of their erotic genius and scale their soul's work into preeminent platforms of social change through primal self reintegration. Her work also evokes and provokes the somatic decolonization of systemic, racialized, and sexualized trauma in the bodies of melanated BIPOC creators and the white co-conspirators of the anti-racism revolution at hand. I feel so grateful to know you.
I'm so grateful to know both of you. So good.
So just to lead into this conversation, you both, of all the people I know, you both have heard me kind of musing about sensual sovereignty and like excited about it, even if I wasn't really sure what it was exactly. And this series was really an opportunity to, as I say, like breathe life into it. What I describe as embodied love, liberation, and the license to expand the expression of our full essence. And with my first guest, Cosmos, it started to become this burn the box series because as you expand the expression of your full essence, you can leave boxes, burn them perhaps, but definitely step out into different realms and different ways of being and moving through life. So I'd love to hear really from each of you, if any of you, if either one of you feels like speaking to that at all, like about boxes being burned or expanding in your own body, like your true essence, as you've both been for sure on those journeys. Or should I ask somebody? This is what I'm thinking.
Like, you go? Do I go?
I'm making it difficult. Casey, what do we
Yeah,
hear from you? Yeah.
I'll go. Yeah, I really love this because I feel like it really encapsulates like my work and what I deeply desire to reshape, particularly around motherhood and the experience of motherhood. Um, when I became a mom, it really became clear to me that there were like these very distinct paths that were created for me through society's like definition of what a mother is or what mothering is. And it became clear that the traditional definition that society kind of throws on to individuals who become mothers just did not work for me and it did not vibe for me. And I was like, with all of this training that I have around sensuality and sexuality and embodiment, like what what does motherhood get to look like through those lenses? And how is motherhood like a portal through really like a portal of rebirth for me, and I get to like show up in my totality of who I am, and not inside of motherhood, but motherhood gets to be a part of that totality. So I still get to be Casey, and I still get to explore parts of me that were there before I became a mother, but motherhood just happens to be this new path that I get to walk, and I get to kind of shape and mold into what feels good for me. And I really wanted to create that opportunity for other women to experience that, their experience of motherhood, because it can feel, especially nowadays, super isolating. It can feel super disconnected. It can feel like, am I doing this the right way? And the answer to those questions is like, it doesn't have to feel isolating. It doesn't have to feel like, am I doing this the right way? You get to do it the way that resonates deeply with you. You get to use this path as a way of like getting to the truth of who you really are. Like each and every day I surprise myself of what I am, like my capacity to show up for my son, for myself, for my husband and our family unit. I'm surprised at the capacity of love, of patience, of understanding. It is just a constant experience of expansion, and of course there is contraction, which is a part of the rebirth process, right? But I'm finding that the narrow definition of motherhood is like, it's exactly that. It's like so narrow, and it does not encapsulate like the dynamic experience of not only creating another life, carrying another life, birthing another life, and also taking care of another life and taking care of yourself in the process. And so I love this idea of burning the boxes that you find yourself in order to find deeper sovereignty within yourself, and like standing because you get to stand deeply in your power, right? And you get to define your power, you get to discover it and really embody it. Um, and and it's, I don't know, it's such a beautiful experience personally of being like, you know, fuck those boxes. Get rid of them. They do
Exactly.
not serve anyone in any situation.
Yes. Oh, I love hearing you talk about this. And Nikka and I have had the honor of witnessing you from pre-motherhood and through that journey. What a journey. And to see, like, I know with your podcast that you're doing, Pleasurehood, like to see with that you are breaking these boxes. Like people can get really confined into a box of motherhood, right? Like motherhood comes in society and our culture with like lots of, these kind of predefined, well, this is what it is, and this is what you can do, and this is what you can't do. And to actually allow your essence to be so expansive that the motherhood part is part of it, but there's so much more. And to be able to guide women on that, I think is so amazing. Oh, I'm so excited for your work.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Nikka, Karli, who's burned lots of boxes. I know.
Yes, yes. It's like the joy of life is burning boxes. one of one of the joys.
Right?
Can you, and just to make sure, can you guys hear me all right? Because
Mhm.
for some reason the actual mic setup was not working. I couldn't hear you. So is this good? We're
Yes.
good. Okay. And there are like gardeners and all of the things all around right now. So this is also the invitation to it kind of fits, right? Of course it does. But like burning boxes around, fuck, like everything around what it is that we are supposed to be, around who it is that we are supposed to be in business, around who it is that we're supposed to be when we show up to connection and to, conversations and communion, and what has to be in place, and being able to show up as ourselves in the full totality of our creativity, of our expression, of the work and the medicine that we know is here for us, that we are here to be the living evocation of, that we get to burn the box around everything that we hold constructs around how it has to look, around what has to be in place before we can step into that which we know that we are, right? Before we can say yes to that which we know we are here to embody and evoke, before we can allow ourselves to completely surrender, throw up in our legs, and like free fall into who we know that we came here to be, like that remembrance and saying yes to it, burning the box around that which, like all of the conditioning and the habituated patterns and the systemic trauma and the intergenerational and ancestral trauma and the lived trauma and the pieces that we've been holding on to somatically, that we have almost begun to believe what we're who we are, right? Like it was almost like, okay, well, if this is what I've encoded, right, then this must be who I am. Then this must be a part of the work that I'm here to do in this world, right? Like this must be, oh, well, here are the confines around what it means to be me, or how it is safe to be me, right? And if I step outside of this, if these lines get blurry, if this box, holy fuck, if this box burns down, then I will not be safe, right? Then horrific things will befall me, and will befall the people I love, and the business that I'm creating, and the business, and the business of business, the business of soul, and relationships, and whatever it is that you are fully turned on by. If we are living into these boxes, we will limit how we live into life. If we allow the boxes to become the determining factor of how we experience ourselves and how we experience life as ourselves, then the box becomes what we believe to be ourselves. We begin to see ourselves through the lens of the container, through the constriction of the box. And so burning that down, allowing ourselves to completely dissolve and disseminate and destruct all of the things that we have believed into on some level, on enough of a level that we began to shrink and warp that which we are into those boxes, into the confines of those boxes. That is like, that's what turns on my soul, allowing ourselves to fully be in the remembrance of that which we are and that which we came here to remember and become, and being the evocation of that creative expression, movement, like the way that we make love, the way that we experience God, wealth, all of the things, whatever that might be for you, simply the way that we are. And so burning the box is really around burning the box for me of everything. Like it's there's no area that I am willing to stay in the banality. As soon as I recognize that I'm in the banality, I'm like, oh shit, okay, yeah, muggle dickery, yeah, no thank you, right? Like this has got to go, because this is not who we are. This is not how we enjoy experiencing ourselves. And so then it gets to burn. It gets to burn in the fire, in the repacification of that which we are. And so yeah, creativity, abundance, connection, soul, love, sex, everything. Yeah. It all fucking gets to burn. Like that's for me the magic. That's the wild. Like it's like everything must go. everything that's in the box. Everything must go. All must go.
All the boxes. Burn.
All the boxes. And there's really, of course, there's no box, right? It's just like it's the boxes that we believe to be there, and that we then try to warp and shapeshift ourselves in order to fit, in order to be safe, in order to belong, in order to be whatever, what the fuck ever it is in that moment. Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm here. I was hearing. Well, Nikka, I've heard you talk about the banality before. Not something that feels good. And then I know, Casey, when you were talking about motherhood, even you were mentioning about these like expansions and contractions, all of which we have talked about, you know, but I think it's just really important to talk a little bit about that process, like the process of realizing you're in an uncomfortable, constricted, contracted. So I mean, I'm calling it box, but you know, like whatever it is, right? But you're in this place and like, it doesn't feel good. It feels contracted. It feels the banality. It feels like this isn't really me. And yet there's something comfortable, perhaps there. Oh no, what happened?
We lost. She'll be back.
There she is. She'll come back. The tech, we've got like your gardeners and like the mics not working. It's just, this is when you know this is like a really potent space. Like all the things.
Oh, you know it. You know it.
Start to get in the way.
Tech gremlin shenanigans.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Casey's back. Yay.
I'm back.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear, like, and for anyone who's listening, like what we can understand about how that can feel. Because for some, and for me, I know in different boxes, like it's scary. It's scary to like step out. Like I know I'm uncomfortable, I'm constricted, constrained, I'm using these words, but you know, like it's just like, this doesn't feel good. And yet this is what I was conditioned to be, kind of, you know, like this is what I know. This is what is comfortable in a way. It's not comfortable, and yet it's safe. Maybe I say that, like kind of safe, you know? And there's a process that we go through when we start to like expand or just like take a step, you know, and go into the unknown kind of thing. And that's, yeah, if that resonates at all, I wonder if you could speak to that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm in the process of going through this right now in the sense of like I'm being invited into like the next level of like life, of business, of relationships, and it's what I'm realizing like what got me here won't get me to the next level, which is really scary because I'm like, but I know all the things over here. Like, I know this practice and I know this meditation and I know this like mindset journaling stuff. Like, what do you mean none of this stuff is going to work to get me to the next level? Like, I don't understand. And so for
Yeah.
me, it's like this moment of like sticking with the theme of like burning the box. It's like I actually have to burn myself down. Like I have to like be brave enough to be like, oh, this version of myself was fantastic for what I needed it to be. But for me to up level
Mm-hmm.
to this new place that I'm being called to, that I'm being invited to, I kind of have to like burn myself down and then rebuild from this new place. And that can be really, really scary because you
Mm-hmm.
build as you go along, you build all these constructs around yourself
Mm-hmm.
to support the person that you're becoming, right?
Right.
And then when you realize, like, oh, it's time to become again, you're like, oh crap, does that mean like, oh, I have to go back and reevaluate everything? I have to go back and reevaluate this relationship. I have to reevaluate my relationship to myself, my relationship to my word. I have to evaluate how I show up in space, you know, like, and that's for me personally, since I'm in the process of doing this, it's really, really terrifying because there's all the questions of like, well, what are people going to think? What are people going to say about me? Like, I'm not the Casey they knew when I was like 21.
You've changed a bit.
Yeah, I changed a bit. You know? Um, but then there's like this moment of remembrance of when I burned it all down before. And I'm like, oh, I've actually done this before. I've actually burned it all to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And and I came out okay. I came out on the other side. And I feel like the more that you are open to burning it down and rebuilding it, to dying and rebirthing, the cycle, I don't want to say it becomes easier because it doesn't, because I feel like each invitation to either burn it or to rebirth it, to like to die and then rebirth, um, brings its own level of pain and agony because there's grief and sadness in the process.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a remembrance of hope that things work like things always work out the way that it's supposed to.
Yes.
It always does. The stars will always align, like your needs will always be met, you will always be supported. um the first step is honestly just saying yes to the process and surrendering to like the sweetness of the process and the scariness of the process and the uncertainty of the process. But
Yeah.
you always come out on the other side like so much more radiant, so much more powerful, so much more connected and embodied and grounded than you were before. And when I remember that, I'm like, oh, it's worth it. Like, it's totally worth it.
Mm. Wow, really felt that, Casey. And what I'm hearing from you also is there's the remembering, there's the trust, and then, and the knowing of, like, some knowing, right? I guess it is trust and knowing that it's going to be okay, that makes it then possible to surrender, to burn whatever needs to go, to honor like the grief of that, the sadness of that, because this takes time to get to a certain place, you know, while also just like trusting that whatever is on the other side of that, that whole process is going to be just, I don't know, I'm going to use the words, my own words, but so much more aligned, so much more of the truth of the you know, who you're desiring to be right now, who wants to come through, right? Anyway, I use some of my own words, but it just, thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah.
And Nikka, what's resonating for you in all this, or what's coming through? Going from banality to something else. Right?
Yeah. I mean, we all know banality is like one of my states. I'm like, oh, okay, shit's about to go. Like we're something's about to shift because this is not allowed to stay. But it's always an invitation to go deeper. It's always an invitation in. And one of the things that I teach transmit around a lot is like what needs to die to soul today. Like what needs to die to soul today in order for soul to come into full aliveness, into this next evolution of who you know that you are, right? The next evolution of the magic, the next evolution of expression, of relationships, of like whatever it is, but what needs to die to soul today. And whenever we're in these medicine portals of like, we're being shown, right? We're being shown in the way that we are experiencing our physical reality, right? Our physical form. We are being shown, okay, this is it's time, right? This piece here has run its course. This piece, whether it was regardless of whether or not we felt that it was in service or not, it was just kind of there. We're being shown, okay, right? Yes. This is it's ready. It's time for this to die to soul. We're also able to drop in on a body-based level, right? Like we will start to notice health stuff. We'll start to notice like energetics and emotionality, right? Where we're just like, what is this residue? Like there's stickiness, like like I'm feeling crunchy, like it feels like my economy of movement has become like so like stagnant and stagnant and like quagmiric is one of my favorite words. It's not a word, it's one of my favorite words. And it just feels like it's in this like what is this? Like what is this here for? Like what is this here to show me? And whenever we're in that place of inertia, whenever we're in that place of like we know, like Casey said, like we know like there's something here, right? Like we're being called into this next evolution, this next level, whatever resonates with it, with you in any given moment. Like we know it's there. And so it's simply for us to either stop running from it, stop fighting it, stop distracting ourselves with myriad other things because we think we're not ready, because we believe that there will be consequences to us saying yes right now. And so we continue to push it out into nebulous never land, where it's like, okay, someday, one day, that's when we'll step into this. I hear you, soul, but we can't right now because, right? And so then, oh, right. So all of those reasons why we've got to have all this other stuff in place. We've got to say yes to this first. We've got to embody this first. We've got to remember this first. We've got to understand this first. We've got to have all this shit handled. This needs to be handled before I can say yes to soul. It's all simply that invitation. Right. Okay. And what needs to die to soul in order for soul to fully live, right? Like, what is it in this moment that I'm being shown, that I'm showing myself, that I am experiencing shit that is like, I don't like this anymore. Maybe I never did, but I am aware. I am really aware of this thing right now. And we're done. Like, we're done with it. And that, one of the first things, like when I was really, I think it was like when I was first coming online or something, I don't know what it was, but it was, and I have no idea who said it, but like the comfort in discomfort, right? Like, so we've been in the place that we're in, right? It's not comfortable. We don't want it. We're tired of it. Like we've washed our hands of it, and yet we're comfortable there because it's like we've done the the medicine, we've done the healing, we've said yes, we've kind of shape shifted our physical reality to embody or evoke this level or this aspect of us, and we're like, oh no, we're done with that shit. But it got comfortable, right? And one of the things that we really dropped into back when I was doing personal training for all of the years and years and years, and sports and all the things, is there's a difference between comfort and complacency, right? But we can confuse them. We can believe that, oh, well, okay, so I'm comfortable in this discomfort. And so that means if I say yes to the thing that I know I'm here for, this next evolution, that's going to be really hard and it's going to be traumatic and I'm not going to be able to handle it. I'm going to, have a full nervous system blowout, right? And I mean, depending on how we go about it, maybe, right? But it's not inevitable. That's not inevitable, right? We can allow ourselves to get a little uncomfortable. We can allow ourselves to experience comfort in the growth, like the growth, the evolution, the rebirth. It does not have to be traumatic. It does not have to be this huge, horrific thing that we song and dance that we continuously play out. But when we have become complacent, that's when we're not willing to grow, right? That's when we recognize the box no longer fits, right? The shoe no longer fits. And yet we're like, but like, we can stay. I mean, it's not that bad, right? But look at all the work it's going to take to go into this next level. Like, look at that, right? Look at the work. And then when we drop into being in a melanated body, melanated female, femme identifying body, we can have a lot of constructs around work, around what it is to engage in work, and how traumatic that was, and how horrific, and the atrocities that were enacted upon the bodies of our ancestors. And so when we can look at something and we're like, oh fuck, this is going to be work, or this is going to be the hustle, or this is going to be whatever, we're like, I'll just stick with the thing that I'm complacent around. It's not what I want. I'm aware of it, right? Like, I've moved past discomfort. Like, I'm fully aware, but I'm still going to choose into this thing that is not for me, because I've got such an aversion to what I believe to be what it's going to take in order for me to be free, in order for me to be fully alive, in order for me to burn this box.
Wow. Yes. There was so much there. One thing that came to me just as you were speaking is this, which I know this is the work that part of the work that we're all doing, of the connection to the body, right? Because if we stay in the head, in the mind, in our rational thinking, like, we can come up with all kinds of rationale for why that complacent place is okay, it's all right, like, it's not so bad, or it's bringing me money, or whatever the things are, but it's like, I think that process of connecting to the body, which is what, like, this work, how we all got connected with that process, suddenly then it's like, it's like the body doesn't lie. Like, the body doesn't come up with as many rationales, because I was like, this is fucking just too tight. I just don't feel good. I wake up in the morning, I have no energy, like all that stuff. It's like the body will show us, like, oh yeah, this is what's really going on. Will help us get out of the complacency. There was that, and then this idea, as I was mentioning, as Casey had mentioned, about expansion, contraction, and what was coming through with your share is something that only Casey has experienced of the three of us, but actually giving birth, right? Like this, like again, haven't experienced it myself, but like this idea of we're in a we're in a process that can take some time. And then after a certain point, we have to birth it. Whatever's coming through has to be birthed, or it gets incredibly uncomfortable to, you know, kind of just, yeah, I'm not, in case you can speak to that more. That was just coming through. I'm like, oh, there is something
Yeah.
with this birth, you know?
Yeah, no. I love that analogy. And because birthing is, I mean, like birthing a child is a very embodied experience. It is an extremely embodied experience. And no, I really feel you're right. Like the body never lies. Like the mind, if it had its way, it would just rationalize why, like you said, like being stuck, being unmoving. All right, yeah, you know, I'm not the happiest, but uh, who needs to be happy, right? And meanwhile, the body is like, excuse me, hello, and tying it back to like birth, the for me like me being in my body during my entire pregnancy was pivotal to my vitality and also to my life. Um, for example, like I listened to after I gave birth and I went home and I listened to every little cue that my body was giving me that something was not right, something was amiss. And it could have been very easy for me to go into my mind, to my, you know, my rational mind and be like, everything's okay. Don't worry about it. I'm overreacting. When in reality, my body was screaming at me like, something is not right. You need to go back to the hospital. And I did not want to. Everything in my body, like everything in my mind was just like, I don't want to leave my baby. I don't want to go back to the hospital. Like, and then when I got back to the hospital, they're like, good thing you came here. You could have had a seizure. You could have had a stroke. Like, you could have died if you hadn't listened to your body, essentially. And uh, I mean, I, of course, believe in the power of embodiment and being embodied. But if I didn't believe in it then, I sure do believe in it now, that like being deeply connected to your body can literally save your life. And that can look like being in a relationship that is going nowhere, or being at a job that doesn't like fill your energetic cup or your soul. And it's so easy to disconnect and to numb out and to kind of just like walk around life like a zombie. Believe me, I have been there. I did it for a really long time, and it brought me to a place where I was literally like, what's the point? Like, to a place I was like, I feel so out of it. Like, if this is it, like, you know, like this isn't a life worth living. And I remember very clearly that my body had been sending me signals for years. I had just gotten really good at not listening to those signals.
Yes.
To when it brought me to a point where I felt so like I was in like a super beautiful, beautiful place. And like I was in Turkey on the beach and with my family at like a 5-star hotel, and having this beautiful experience, and I felt nothing. And that was when I was like, there's something not right here. But it took me to that point where I felt nothing in order for me to start being like, oh, maybe something is, maybe I should look at this. um, and it can become a situation of living life fully or atrophying and, you know, just kind of slowly withering away. And that being being embodied and really quickly to speak to what Nikka was saying, and it can manifest in like ailments, you know, mystery diseases, and you know, your body malfunctioning and not knowing why, and you know, kind of throwing all these things at it to try for it to act better. Believe me, I went through that. Like my I had like digestion problems, and I went to go see a specialist, and they ran all these tests, and they were like, we don't know what's wrong with you. Like, your tests are coming back normal. I have no idea what's wrong with you. I was just really depressed and so disconnected from myself that my body was like, hello, trying to get my attention.
Yes.
And so it does come to a place of life and death, or living like a vital life, living through like vitality, or just kind of, you know, aimlessly walking and habitually walking through life. And for me, embodiment is the key. And it will, you're right, like your body will birth something. Either you get to be a part of that birthing process, or you're going to receive something that, you know, you're like, I didn't really ask for this. And your life is like, well, actually, you just haven't been present.
You've been in denial of a whole gestation process. Oh, thank you. And Nikka, I mean, I don't know, you might want to, I don't know if you want to respond to that, but I had something that I wanted to ask from what you shared, because, well, I know you, so we've had lots of conversations, but even what you just shared earlier about, it's very clear that you have gotten like so tuned in, like banality, you know, okay, something's got to go, something's got to die, something's got to, you know, like shift. It's just like a signal for that to happen. And even with what you shared about what has to die for soul, is that for soul today?
To soul.
To soul.
Whatever has to die to soul. Yeah.
What has to, what has to die?
But yeah, for soul. Yeah.
This, I get what you're saying, but I think for a lot of people, this is like, whoa, like somebody needs to be dying all the time, you know, within us, or like that's, I would just love to hear you speak more to that, a little bit of this, like you've gotten so tuned into when something needs to shift, like you're not getting into long periods of the banality or the, you know, complacency or whatever.
Yeah. Sometimes I do. Sometimes there are long periods where I'm just like, yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know. I'm like, yes, we we absolutely know. So there's no, just to say, right? I've been really attuned with my body, like since I was a little kid, like really dropped in sexual energy, movement, all of the things. And still there are moments where, it's just like, you just get into this like inertia, right? Or it feels like inertia, right? So just like, yes, like there are still moments, even being deeply attuned, there are still moments. So when we say dying to soul, it first, like, you don't have to allow any, like, nothing, you don't have to do anything, right? You don't have to, right? Like, you don't have to allow anything to die to soul. You don't have to choose anything to die to soul. And dying to soul, right? Like, because sometimes we can feel like, oh God, here we go again, we have to go into this next level, which brings us into this state of consciousness where we feel like we are out of our own power, right? Like that this is happening to us and that we are not in sovereign choice within our own lives. And so when we talk about dying to soul, it is like, it's presenting itself as a medicine portal. It's presenting itself as a choice, as a choosing, as you having this moment to decide. And dying to soul, creation, destruction, rebirth, there is never a moment that we are not in the cycle of infinity, of life itself, right? There is always something dying. There is always something coming into creation. There is always something rebirthing, right? It is simply what is ascendant for us in any given moment. What are we awake to? What are we aware of in any given moment? And so if we are in that space of dropping in with body, and we're able to be in that space of attunement of like, oh yeah, like this, this is not what I desire, right? This is not how I desire to experience myself. Okay, then when we say what needs to die to soul, it's really, that's semantics, right? It's just like, what is here, what is presenting itself, that's run its course, whose time has come, that is, we know it is time for it to go to ground, back into the primordial muck of that which we are, right? That we know this being alive in and being in form potentially in our life, a construct that we're living into, a habituated pattern that we're living into. Yeah, like its time has come. It is time for this to move back into formlessness, so that the next energetic rebirth, the next energetic cycle can be made manifest through me, for me, and as me, right? And so dying to soul, one, it is a sovereign choice. Two, yes, we attune, we embody, we come in, we sensitize, and also there will likely be periods where you're like, I don't give a fuck. I feel this inertia, I feel the stagnation, I feel the banality, and I'm just gonna stay. Yep, I'm just gonna be here. Or like, I don't know what to do with this. We know, but it can just feel, right? Like, and so there is no perfection, there is no place to get, there's no amount of sexual energy, magic making, or creativity, or consciousness work, or what, like, there's no amount of any of that is going to remove you from the humaning experience, right? Unless you're choosing that, right? But like, which is just sitting on a meditation pillow and like not living into your life, right? Which is also, that can be a choice. But so all that to say, there's no pinnacle to get, right? We don't experience or play in the embodiment so that we can get somewhere, right? So that we can achieve something, going back into this colonized linear, like, do this to get this, right? There is simply like, oh, I'm in the practice because that's how I enjoy experiencing myself. That's how I want to experience life being lived as me, right? And so when we say dying to soul, it is simply you being in the full awareness and the conscious awareness and choosing of, is this how I want to experience myself in this moment? Is this, that whatever this construct, this belief, this whatever, this pattern, do I want to continue playing with this? Is this how I want to continue this dance, this primordial dance, or not? And then we get to choose. And so dying to soul is simply you being shown, and you being shown is you showing yourself, right? You as creator, you as creation, you also as the one being created, you, like, on all layers and levels. Dying to soul, we are showing ourselves, we are being shown, do we want to keep going here? Do we want to continue this? Do we want to allow this? Do we want to choose that this is still running in the background, running amok, controlling our lives, whatever it might be, or not?
Yeah.
And if it's yes, we want to continue. Okay, cool, without judgment. Let that shit play out, right? But if it's a no, then it's like, okay, then what's here for us in this?
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm also hearing in that, like, it sounds like like getting to a higher level of awareness to have that kind of a conversation between like the inner creator and us, and choosing as sovereign beings what to do. And I'm also reflecting on what Casey said about how like these messages can be coming, like if we're not having that if we're not attuned to that, then it's like it can show up in the body level, right? Like sickness or things, that where it's like you're not listening at all. Like you need a bigger, kind of a signal. Perhaps I'm not saying, not like that's happening on to punish us in some way, but I mean this process, right? Soul wants to be expressed fully. So these different things are going to happen to kind of pull us, in that direction. And can we be like more conscious of it, more aware, like have that kind of conversation, like, okay, I know this is here, but I need to just wait for a while, kind of thing, like have that. Or is it just going to be operating and then it shows up, and like we can't ignore,
Something that just came up. Oh, something that just came up for me, because one of the things that I've been really honing in on is like practical, like the practical of embodiment, right? Because one of the things that really interests me about embodiment, and I remember my friend sharing with me that his cousin's husband had came home one night and had a massive heart attack and passed away. And I just remember just being like, wow. And I'm sure this happens more often than not, unfortunately, but I'm like, wow, just being so, and no fault to anyone whatsoever, but just being so disconnected from your body that you don't know that there's something happening inside of it, that it's malfunctioning in a way that it just completely stops working, right? And so I was like, I remember that really kind of solidified my desire to like really understand the body, being connected to it, feeling the sensations, really honing in on what it means to be in this mechanism that allows us to experience life, right? And so I think going back to like, I always think about the practical, like where does someone even begin? Like how does someone even get onto this path to where they can even recognize like the banality of their life and that something needs to change and something needs to evolve or be burned down or transform. Because I feel like for a lot of people, it's difficult just to start, like even know where to begin. Like they might have this knowing, this deep intuitive, because everyone has intuition, right? Like this deep intuitive knowing that something is off, something is not right, but they just don't have the tools or the skills or know where to begin to even start having that conversation. They don't even have that language to even start the process of elimination, right? And so, like bringing embodiment, like slowing the embodiment like down to the point of just like, okay, this very simple step of X, Y, and Z will allow me to have a deeper conversation with my body, because I feel like in a lot of ways it's like a new concept, but in a lot of ways it's coming online for a lot of people, especially with like the COVID situation and the fact that we've been disconnected for 2 years. And like I hear people that I never thought I would hear talking about like their nervous system. Like the other day I was talking to my mom and we're talking about the nervous system, and I was like, I never thought I'd have a conversation with my mother about the nervous system and how she desires to like heal her nervous system so she can start to like be in society and community again. You know? I know. And so, yeah, I just wanted to bring that to like kind of like the conversation of like, yeah, how do we break this such big, powerful, potent concepts down into actionable like steps for, I'm just thinking like a trucker who
Yeah. If there are any truckers watching this,
but no, it's just like embodiment what? Or just anything with like embodiment what?
Yeah.
Like a trucker image just came up for me.
No, I know. And do you have, like, is there something that you tell people to help them, like a practical step? And we can ask Nikka also, like a practical step.
Yeah, one of a couple things. So one is like, I remember when we were first like doing like the practicums with people outside of the Vita coaching where we all met, the Vita coaching container. And people, I'd be like doing a body meditation with them, and I'm like, feel into your sensations and your felt sense. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I realized I would be like, oh, okay, yeah. All right. Do you feel your butt in your chair? Like, yes. Like, what does that feel like? You know, is your sit bony? Does it feel comfortable? You know, like, does it feel comfortable? Do you feel your feet flat on the floor? You know, is it hot or cold in your room? And just starting with the sensations you can actually feel on the outside of your body, you know?
Yes.
It's so important because I think it's so easy to ignore even those sensations of like, ooh, I'm cold. Like, okay, how do I meet that need? Okay, I'll go get a blanket. Like that in itself is like an embodiment practice, right? Or like, oh, this chair is super uncomfortable. I'll go get a pillow to make it more comfortable. And just building on that. And then another one that really supported me was like body scanning was like a huge one for me, and how I communicated with actually my husband Doan during difficult conversations, because before I would feel uncomfortable, but I didn't have the language of like what that uncomfortable feeling was. And it would manifest in crying because it's like a deep release, because I just get so overwhelmed that I would just release in tears, and then it just created a huge communication breakdown. So being able to just even stop myself and being like, this something you said just made me feel deeply uncomfortable. And I didn't even have like the sensation words of like, I feel constricted or like I feel a lump in my throat. Like none of that. It was just I feel uncomfortable by something you said. I need to stop, remove myself from this situation, gather my thoughts, like feel into what my body is trying to tell me, and then I can come back and continue the conversation. And sometimes it would take me like a full day to recover and to like gather my thoughts and to like really feel into like that uncomfortable feeling. And then I could return and be like, okay, are you prepared to have this conversation? Because I'm prepared to have that conversation. And that I use that every day. Like I'm like, oof, something just activated like this sensation in my body. What is amiss in my environment, and how can I like you know, either how can I move with it, can I change it? If I can't, okay. Let me just sit with this and, be with it. Because of course you can't always change the situation to make you feel better, to make you feel comfortable. But it's really about just understanding, like, oh, something does not sit or feel right in my body. Like, how can I be with it? And then if I can do something about it, what needs to be done?
Mm-hmm.
And those two things have been just life, like transformed my life. And I know with some of the people I've worked with, it has really allowed them, given them the understanding of just the simple, like, oh, my body has sensations. Like,
Right?
my body actually like feels things.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I see. We have some people. Oh, I don't know. They've come through maybe, but I see Carrie. Just have to say hello because she knows all of us. Nikka, I'm curious what you would share in terms of like, because I think this is so important. What are the practical, something really practical, something that's really accessible to like build this connection.
Yeah, well, like everything Casey said is really fucking brilliant, and she's amazing at working at that the PPM, the practical person magic of bringing people into, guiding people into kind of like the beginnings of the practice, It's not my genius. It's absolutely not my genius. If we are just beginning to explore the body, it is definitely not my
That's so
not
true.
my genius. Yeah, like beginning. It never, but it really hasn't been. In all aspects of body stuff and everything, which is beautiful, because we really do get to play in the ways that that most turn on our soul. So here's what I will share. For this is amazing for beginners, but it's also just for people who have been playing in these waters for decades and you just fucking forgot everything that you knew.
Yes, that happens.
Because those moments will come. One, this is like my standard is breathe, move, create, right? So get into your body, get into the breath, get into your movement, and then create something with it, right? So if you are unsure, if you're like, I don't know what's happening, okay, start to connect into your body, start to connect into your breath, and then see whatever your body, however your body is going to start to move, and see whatever there is to see and explore and feel, and start to listen and start to like really drop in. And there's no specific thing that you have to do, right? Okay, now we need to shake, now we need to get on the floor, now we need to do this, now we need to step into this type of a breath. No, it's simply, okay, if you fucking all seems lost, the muse has forgotten your name, you have absolutely no idea who you are, what you've remembered, everything, is just like, okay, stop, drop, and get into your body and your breath. And then as you're in there, you will start to notice, oh, I'm so sorry, Carrie. You will start to notice whatever your body is offering up to you, right? You can drop into inquiry, body-based inquiry, drop into your somatic memory. Like you can drop into what's there simply by beginning to sensitize into your body and your breath. And then rather than just like trying to think your way through it, you actually allow yourself to create something, journal with it, write a blog post, go make love, like allow yourself to come into creation energy with whatever your body is showing you. So that's one, which I know if you're like, I have no idea what my body even is, that might not feel accessible. Go into all of the magical pieces that Casey shared. Something that really resonated in my first yoga teacher training, that I really like, doesn't matter how long you've been practicing, however long you've been on your mat, is that we move from one of the ways that we can do is to move from the gross to the subtle, right? And so when we are stepping onto our mat, we've had a shit day, we've been doing all the things like tech shenanigans, fight with your partner, like whatever it is, and then you trying to get onto your mat and then drop into like full equanimity and like emptying out all thought and all constructs and like coming into full centeredness with creation, right? It can be challenging, right? Because our bodies are, we're just like, oh, like there's so much stuff and there's emotion and there's energy and just like residue and things are feeling really sticky and our thoughts are going all over the place. And so we begin with the breath and the movement, right? We begin with asana. We allow ourselves to start to come into a pranayama, into a breath practice, and we find ourselves in the meditation without even really trying to get there. We find ourselves there because we are coming into the somatic experience of that which we are, and we are allowing the pieces, the extraneous pieces, to fall away without trying to get them to do something, without judging, without trying to, oh, I'm going to calm down, I'm going to calm my nervous system. We're allowing ourselves to simply come into the practice of being. Yeah. And so moving from the gross to the subtle, a specific example of that is with an Ujjayi breath sound. So with that oceanic breath sound, back of your throat, lips closed, right? And so when we first begin, if it's like you're either just getting onto your mat and it's been a shit day, or you're just coming into a breath practice, you start with it a little louder, right? So that you can hear it, so that you're like, oh, am I making that sound? Am I starting to drop in? It's louder. It's in the gross aspect of the breath. And the deeper and deeper, the more sensitized you get with the breath, it gets softer. It gets more subtle. You don't need to hear it in order to hear it, in order to feel it, in order to experience that valving, that oceanic sound. It is more internal rather than more external that you're trying to hear to give you the feedback so that you know it's happening, right? And so moving from gross to subtle. When Casey mentions, like, you know, having these big things that can happen health-wise, and you're like, you have no idea what's happening in your body. This, like, if you've been in the sludge for so long, or you've been in the disconnect for so long, even though all of the signals might be happening, and not that if there's like an emergency critical situation, there might not be any signals. It's just fucking happens, right? But if there are things that are building up over time, like there is no somatic connection there. Like there's just like, you don't, like if you've been out of it for so long, you can't hear what your body's offering up. You can't feel the changes because you either have felt so numb from trauma, or you've got so many layers of emotional residue, or just like disconnect that you don't even feel it. And so when you do get the signals, sometimes they've got to get a bit grosser, a bit louder in order for us to pay attention. But the more that we are in the practice of being, the more that we're in the practice of self, the subtler the signals can be before we pay attention. We don't need the huge nervous system blowouts before we're like, oh shit, was there something happening? Was my body, was there something, right? It's just like, oh wait, like, oh, that feels weird. That feels different, right? What is that? And then we start to play, right? Asking, inquiring of the body, what is this? What are you here to show me? Working with all the different aspects. Yeah. So everything that Casey said, and then and then if you want to play with some other stuff that's not so beginner, right? They are like, here's the thing, like they are the most basic things. Dropping into your body and your breath, that is the most basic, right? Moving your body, that is the most basic, right? If we have access to movement, being able to create something with it, right? It is the most basic. And through our constructs, through our conditioning, through our trauma, it is sometimes seems to be the farthest away and seems so challenging and like so foreign to what we can comprehend, that you're like, what do you mean just move my body? that makes no sense, right? And so then we can just, okay, so don't move your body, right? Like you just stand there and just, I don't like this, and that's where you begin, right? This feels bad, and that's where we begin, right? There's no right or wrong. You begin where you are at any given moment.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That was amazing. And as I asked the question, I'm like, because I've heard a lot of, I've heard you talk many, many times, and I'm like, I don't know if I've heard of the basic practical things, because it's like, that's not what you do. You're working with like more advanced kind of practitioners or people, but that was really good. Breath and moving, getting in the body. I was thinking, like, for me, I'll talk to people about like when they wake up in the morning, just putting their hands on their body and like, what does my body have to tell me, or what is the message that my body's giving me, just to kind of like, as again, like, just start that there may be nothing there, you know, but just starting to get attuned. So we've gone over an hour. Just letting you know. I hope this will save.
Of
That's my only
course.
thing. Does anyone know? Anyway, we'll have to see.
Will it stay?
Will it save? Like, will it?
Oh, it better.
I
It's
couldn't
heavy.
stop it. It was just too good. Like, I couldn't stop it when I could have asked, like, okay, it's almost an hour. You know, but, okay, let's just hope. Let's hope it saves.
Yeah. We'll intend.
Like, please. So I guess I mean, this is amazing. Thank you both. And I feel like there's just more and more, you know, like this could go on, as we have done before, of course.
I think you have some in the chat if you want in.
Oh, yeah. As much as I can. Okay. Sorry for my English. I tried to understand this very interesting conversation as much as I can. I love your energy. You are such a beautiful woman. Thank you for all you're sharing with us. Oh, thank you. And we had Cosmos was here. Oh, yes, we had Azaria earlier. So, yay. So I mean, you can kind of just end, I guess, and I definitely want people to know like where they can find your work, what's alive for you right now, but also if there's anything that you want to, Carlos is still there. Here. If there's anything like that you feel like hasn't been said, or you know, that you want to give voice to.
I feel really good.
You feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Does it feel complete?
Mm-hmm.
This was such a treat for me, and so we will end. We want to hear about your work and where to find you. But I do want to say, as we've been having this conversation, like one thing that was coming alive for me, and like I noticed, like Nikka complimenting Casey, and like this whole energy, like I feel like meeting both of you and getting to be in spaces together and going through our own evolution as people, as humans, and as entrepreneurs and all that, it's really been such a gift to have an energy in a space that feels really supportive, where there's not so much of like the competition and comparison. I mean, that might be there. It's, you know, I mean, I know I'm just speaking for myself, but it's not like it's always felt so nurturing, this connection that we have. And I also feel like just in that there's some burning some boxes there, or a box, or whatever you want to say, you know, because there is so much that happens in these different spaces, or just in general, of women not like supporting each other, and kind of this going, I don't know, just like, you know what I mean, like just this hostile kind of energy or whatever. So anyway, I'm super, super grateful for both of you. So, Casey, please share with us, like, what's alive for you in your work? Where can people find you?
Yeah.
And anything coming?
Yeah. So I post a lot here on Instagram at Casey.aksoy. That's my handle. I also have a podcast called the Pleasurehood Podcast, where I explore like basically burning the box of like what motherhood is supposed to be and exploring what pleasurable motherhood and parenthood looks like, and touching on sex, sensuality, and of course embodiment. And I have coming up a self-study mini course that's going to be available March 21st, called From Burnout to Radiant. And it is focused on mothers using pleasure practices to heal exhaustion and burnout. And you can find the link to my the wait list for that in my bio. Yeah.
Ooh, love all of that. Cosmos is cheering you on.
Thank you.
Nikka, what's alive for you right now?
Yes. Yeah. I'm in all the places, mostly Instagram, YouTube, at Nikka Karli, websites nikkakarli.com. Ongoing creative mentorship inside of my program Primal Provocateur, and I have a bi-walk only creative gathering healing space called Skin. You can hop on the interest list for both of them at primalprovocateur.com. And what else? If you want to just play in all of the ways, I've got podcast that's probably restarting at some point soon called The Rewilding Experience. There's epic shit on there already, but we're probably restarting soon. But if you want to drop in, excuse me, in all the places, you can join us for free inside my private app, Meek Nation. And you can just go to musingsfromthewild.com, and that's where you can opt in. You'll be added into blogs, and you'll be able to join us for live streams and just all kinds of the madness in all of the places and all of the ways. Yeah.
Beautiful. Cosmos also shouting out to you.
Miss you.
Oh,
Miss you.
thank you both so much. Really, really such a treat for me, and I'd love to do it again sometime. Like, it's so fun.
Totally, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, this is such a treat.
I know. Thank you both so much. I adore you, and I adore sharing space and just being able to muse on all of the things with both of you. So good.
I love you both so much.
I love you both.
I love you both so much too. Group hug.
I know.
I know. All right. Well, thank you. And I just hope this saves because it was so good.
It was really good.
Wisdom. So much.
Thank you, Cosmos.
Beautiful energy. Oh, thanks, Cosmos. Okay. Thank you. The rest of your days.
Thank you, you too. Bye, love.
Bye.